The second my body hit the office floor, the paramedics dialed my parents immediately. Nobody showed up. 3 long days passed while I lay tethered to life support, and when I finally powered on my phone, I discovered exactly what they had been doing instead. A notification popped up. My sister's grinning face, tagging me in a photo caption that read, "Sunday brunch, 0 baggage included." That sentence hurt worse than the needle taped to my wrist. I didn't send a message. I didn't shed a tear. I simply watched the engagement numbers tick upward, questioning when family stopped, signifying affection and started signifying theater. Then 4 days later, 74 missed calls flooded my screen alongside a single text from my father. "We need you." That was the moment the dynamic shifted, just not in the direction they anticipated. I used to think that pure exhaustion was just the price of reliability. At Vertex Solutions, timelines were brutal and projects were infinite. Somehow, I always ended up being the person burning the midnight oil, the one ensuring results. My colleagues often remarked that my discipline was terrifying. They never realized it wasn't ambition. It was necessity. Every billable hour wasn't for my benefit. It was for the people waiting at home to be saved once more. My father, Arthur, hadn't held a steady job since the 2008 recession. He claimed the situation was fleeting, yet 7 years felt rather permanent. My mother, Sarah, insisted he just required patience. But what he actually required was the secondary income, mine. Then there was Chloe, my sister, and the family's aspiring internet celebrity, always debuting a new venture. A lifestyle blog, a jewelry line, a coaching course. Each one crashed harder than the previous attempt. My encouragement usually arrived via bank transfers marked rent assistance or just for now, and Mia, the baby of the family, still in art school, preferred the role of pacifist. She avoided conflict. She simply took money quietly and forgot about it loudly. From the outside, we appeared flawless. A photogenic clan in holiday cards, wearing coordinated outfits and feigned smiles. On social media, Chloe referred to us as the Harrison tribe, evidence that connection is everything. She uploaded that sentiment immediately, after I had covered Sarah's auto insurance and paid the mortgage penalty. Connection, it seemed, came with an invoice. Grandfather Silas was the only person who saw through the charade. He had spent 4 decades as a forensic auditor and could read human behavior like a balance sheet. "You can't audit affection," he told me once, "but you know when the ledger doesn't." Balance, he cautioned me gently that my parents had begun, viewing me as their retirement strategy. I refused to accept it. I was raised to believe that devotion fixed broken things, so I continued fixing. I paid when I shouldn't have. The reality is I was terrified to stop, terrified that if I ever established a boundary, they would finally demonstrate what my value truly was. The evening before I blacked out, I was still in the office at 10 p.m., squinting at schematics I couldn't comprehend. My chest had been constricting for weeks, my peripheral vision blurring. I assumed it was anxiety. It wasn't. Yet even then, as I packed my bag, my phone vibrated with a request from Chloe. "Can you handle my lease? I swear I'll reimburse you next week." I typed a response. Erased it, then typed again. Okay, that was the final communication I sent before the carpet rose up to greet me. The hospital environment was too bright, too sterile, as if attempting to bleach the memory of the event. When I woke up, the world was out of focus, the acoustic tiles, the plastic tubes, the nurse inquiring if I knew my name. I didn't respond immediately. I was still struggling to recall the date. My battery was dead. My ribs throbbed. The machine next to me chirped rhythmically, syncing with something brittle inside my chest. When a physician finally clarified things, his tone was professional but detached. "Cardiac episode. You are fortunate your colleague reacted quickly." Fortunate. That word burned, because fortune shouldn't have been the thing keeping me breathing. Family should have done that. They informed me they had contacted my emergency list, my parents, but nobody picked up. "We left multiple voicemails," the nurse noted softly, as if she worried the facts might sting more than the catheter in my vein. Hours dragged on. No ringtones, no visitors, 0. I watched the sun creep across the plaster until it vanished. On the 3rd morning, the nurse brought in my phone, fully powered. I shouldn't have unlocked it, but I did. The first item wasn't a missed call or a concern message. It was an alert. "You've been tagged in a photo by a verified user." My hand shook as I tapped the app. The image rendered slowly, sunshine, river, water. My family laughing around a banquet table. My mother holding a platter of fruit. My father, drink in hand. Mia making peace signs next to Chloe, whose caption shimmered beneath their idealized faces. Sunday brunch, 0 baggage included. For a second, my lungs ceased. The rhythm on the monitor accelerated, mirroring my heart rate. The irony was nearly artistic. They had deleted me while pretending to honor kinship. I pinched the screen to zoom in on their expressions, joyful, loose, unburdened. Nobody looked remorseful. Nobody looked like they were missing a daughter. A nurse walked by and asked if I required assistance. I whispered, "No, I believe I've had enough." I didn't comment, didn't dial, didn't even type. I simply gazed until the screen faded and my own reflection stared back, gaunt, exhausted, yet suddenly tranquil. That specific tranquility doesn't stem from relaxation. It stems from realization. By day 4, I began walking again, sluggish and shaky, towing the IV stand like a metallic ghost. The specialist mentioned recovery would span weeks. He didn't realize it wouldn't just be my cardiovascular system requiring repair. Then one dawn, my phone vibrated incessantly. 74 missed calls. A text from Arthur. "We need you. Pick up now. No inquiry about my health. Just demands, orders, hysteria." I read it once. Then twice the ridiculousness nearly made me chuckle. They ghosted me when I was desperate, and now they were insisting I rescue them. But I didn't return the call. Not this time. Instead, I scrolled to a different name. Grandfather Silas. My thumb hovered over the contact, the only one that still signified security. When I initiated the call, he picked up on the second ring. "I heard," he stated softly. "You don't have to justify anything." That was the first moment in years someone spoke to me like I was significant. Grandfather Silas arrived 40 minutes later, wearing his vintage gray trench coat and that poker face that never revealed a thought. He didn't embrace me. He wasn't physically affectionate, but he took the chair next to my bed like he'd been stationed there for decades. "So," he said, eyeing the heart monitor, "they finally broke you." I smirked weakly. "Looks like it." He didn't probe for specifics. He already understood. That was his method. Silent, analytical comprehension. He remained the entire afternoon discussing logistics with my nurse, ensuring my policy covered the necessary treatments. When the billing department flagged some outstanding deductibles, he didn't blink. He retrieved his laptop and started keying in data. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Taking inventory," he replied. "Before you start severing ties, you need to know where the wires connect." We reviewed everything. My savings accounts, my scheduled transfers, the auto loans, the joint credit lines. My stomach churned as the spreadsheet expanded. Every single week, funds drained from my ledger like a slow hemorrhage. Chloe's business loan, Mia's tuition, Sarah's vehicle, even a utility bill in my name for a property I hadn't occupied since university. "How did I permit this?" I rasped. "You believed it was affection," he stated plainly. "They believed it was a requirement." Different arithmetic. That evening, while the equipment buzzed and the ward quieted down, Grandfather Silas taught me how to deactivate them one by one, not out of malice but self-defense. He compiled a list, detailed every recurring withdrawal, and presented it to me like an escape route from purgatory. "Tomorrow," he said, "we begin with the institution." I slept poorly. I kept visualizing that Instagram photo, their grins, the daylight, and hearing the faint chirp of the machine like a timer counting down. The following morning, I contacted my bank from the ward. The representative knew my voice. I'd been the dependable client for years. By noon, the automatic payments were history. Chloe's allowance cancelled. Mia's rent subsidy halted. Sarah's insurance deleted. Every button press felt like inhaling oxygen. By dusk, the phone began vibrating. First, a message from Sarah. "We just heard the news. Why didn't you inform us?" Then Mia. "Can we speak?" It's a huge confusion. I ignored every single one. Grandfather Silas sat nearby reading a magazine, feigning disinterest. "You feel the guilt?" he asked eventually. "Yeah," I confessed. Slightly. "As that will fade," he said, closing the magazine. Guilt is the tax decent people pay prior deliberation. The next day, I was discharged. Grandfather Silas drove me to my residence. My flat felt tighter than I recalled, as if the plaster was eavesdropping. I muted my device, disconnected the charger, and gazed out the glass for a long duration. Then a buzz. Another text from Arthur. This is critical. Ring me. Everything is disintegrating." I almost felt pity for him. Almost. They had misinterpreted my silence as capitulation. They didn't realize silence was the audio of me reclaiming command. 2 days later, I was situated at Grandfather Silas's home in Seattle, a compact bungalow that smelled vaguely of roasted beans and cedar. He had cleared the dining surface, laying out folders like a commander plotting a siege. The afternoon light cut across piles of documents. Payment records, bank letters, my financial DNA across years of silent funding. Every narrative leaves a paper trail, he muttered. Yours just happens to be in currency. He wasn't incorrect. By the time we concluded the image was sharp, I hadn't merely assisted them, I had been subsidizing the hallucination of their solvency. Without my salary, everything they had constructed, the reputation, the luxury, the influence, would crumble. And it did. The calls multiplied. My inbox overflowed with my mother's measured tone, sweet on the exterior, jagged beneath. Maya darling, we didn't know you were hospitalized. Why didn't you update us? Then quieter, almost a hiss. Your father is anxious about the house payment again. Anxious, not apologetic. Chloe's texts arrived next. Screenshots of her overdrawn balance, theatrical weeping emojis, and one text that stated, "If you don't resolve this, I lose everything." I looked at it for a minute before typing a single word. Good. Then came Mia's effort. "I'm not like them," she typed. "Please don't penalize me for their errors." I nearly chuckled. She had voiced the exact same sentiment when I co-signed her apartment contract last year. Grandfather Silas was observing me scroll, the edge of his lip twitching like he'd watched this film previously. "They aren't calling because they love you," he noted. "And they're calling because they are trapped." He was correct again. The following dawn, a sedan idled outside my complex. Arthur Harrison, my father, sitting in the driver's seat glaring up at my balcony. He didn't text. He didn't enter. Just waited like a repo man waiting for an admission. I didn't descend. That afternoon, a new notification landed. "You are about to ruin everything we established. I hope you comprehend the destruction you are causing. Everything we established." I read it twice aloud just to savor the delusion. I displayed it to Grandfather Silas. He merely nodded. That sentence reveals more than he intended. And then came the upload. Chloe posted it that evening. A sluggish, sentimental tour of our childhood residence, now vacant. The lens panned across naked walls and cardboard crates, her voice wavering. "They took everything," she narrated. "And guess who allowed it?" The clip cut to a picture of me grinning, cropped from a family Thanksgiving years prior. The caption, "Sometimes biology doesn't mean loyalty." The comments detonated. Compassion, sympathy, critiques. Other influencers shared it. My direct messages filled with random people calling me heartless. Grandfather Silas watched the entire performance in silence, then stood, retrieved his mobile from his vest, and placed 3 calls.
Within 48 hours, we possessed every document.
Mortgage deeds, loan delinquencies, overdue penalties. They had utilized the home's equity to pay off Chloe's credit cards and Mia's startup, a boutique pottery studio that never launched. I didn't even have to unmask them. The arithmetic did it for me. Nevertheless, I submitted the fraud complaint. Grandfather Silas and his attorney, Mr. Vance, assisted in drafting a cease and desist mandate. No communication, no defamation, no financial requests. We dispatched it via registered post, 1 for each member. For the first time in a decade, I slept through the night. The subsequent morning, I awoke to my phone vibrating relentlessly. Mia's face illuminated my screen through the lobby camera downstairs, debating with building security. She hadn't been on the sanctioned guest list. I watched her pacing outside, phone to her ear, likely dialing Chloe. I didn't exit. Later, Grandfather Silas arrived again, clutching a dense manila folder. "And they've done something foolish," he announced. Inside were printed email threads between my parents and a budget legal firm. I scanned the text once, then again. They were investigating legal guardianship over me. I read the subject line aloud. "Urgent filing for temporary conservatorship." Grandfather Silas exhaled. "They attempted this with your aunt years ago. Failed then, too. But this time it might have worked. If I hadn't already transferred everything into the trust he established. If my physician hadn't written affidavits confirming my competency. If my HR division hadn't sent verification I was on medical leave, not terminated. By the time they filed our preemptive paperwork, it had already reached the magistrate. Their petition was dead on arrival, yet they persisted." Chloe posted again, this time weeping. Her makeup streaked down her face as she addressed the lens. "Mental instability doesn't always look like what you anticipate," she claimed. "Sometimes the people you cherish push you away. We are just attempting to save her before it's too late." Her audience swarmed the comments with prayers. "I'll Save Maya" began trending, but the internet has a brief memory and an even shorter temper. Someone located her old Sunday brunch without the drama photo and stitched it alongside. Her sobbing video. So where was this worry when she was in the ICU? The caption asked. The momentum shifted overnight. Screenshots emerged. Chloe's sponsored content deals. Her paid partnerships during the week I was in the cardiac unit. Her tweets ridiculing toxic relative. Mia's online shop was besieged with reviews. My father's consulting clients withdrew. Even my mother's social profile was clogged with strangers requesting explanations. By Friday, the family's digital kingdom had imploded faster than their bank accounts. Grandfather Silas handed me his teacup. "Ma, you didn't have to move a muscle," he said. The facts managed themselves. That night, a solitary text arrived from my mother. "Please, can we speak?" I stared at it for a long while, thumb hovering over the keypad. Then I locked the display and placed it face down. Across the room, Grandfather Silas was reading. "You all right?" he inquired. "Yeah," I whispered. "I just finished." But they weren't. The next morning, a messenger brought another packet. This one wasn't from their solicitor. It was from my father personally. A handwritten testament. He had revised it the week after the guardianship failed. In trembling script, it read, "In the event of my passing, all property goes to the remaining family who uphold harmony. Maya is removed until she makes amends." I couldn't help chuckling. It was the identical coercion just wrapped in legal phrasing. I displayed it to Grandfather Silas. "They still assume I want something." He smiled slightly.
They aren't accustomed to someone walking away before the payout.
That evening, I drafted my final response. Not via text, not online, but through my counsel. It was brief, accurate, and definitive. I relinquish all claims to the estate and demand permanent, no contact. I signed it, sealed it, and passed it to Grandfather Silas. "File it Monday," I instructed. He nodded. "What is your plan now?" I looked toward the glass. Outside, the storm was lifting. "I think I'll recover," I said. "Maybe somewhere more silent." For the first time in years, I meant it. 2 weeks later, the rain finally ceased. Grandfather Silas and I packed what little I wished to retain, one bag, my computer, and a few snapshots that still felt authentic, and drove east toward Vermont. He mentioned he wanted to view the foliage again before the snow. I didn't object. I just watched the interstate dissolve. Mile after mile, the world finally hushed. The lodge we leased sat near a ridge bordered by spruce trees. No static, no commute, no relatives, just quiet, pure and genuine. I worked remotely for Vertex now, reduced hours, zero stress. My mornings began with dark roast and concluded with the audio of the breeze scraping the shingles. Occasionally, I would still receive notifications, a distant relative asking what actually occurred, an observer saying they read the blogs. I didn't reply. I didn't need to let them accept whatever narrative made sense to them. My reality didn't require spectators anymore. Grandfather Silas would sit by the pane, journal in hand, pretending not to watch me exhale freely. "You achieved it," he stated one morning. "You shattered the pattern." I grinned. "It only cost everything." He laughed quietly. "Plus, that's the clearance rate." And he was correct. Because what I acquired was worth more than all the remorse, all the legacies, all the coerced holiday portraits combined. For the first time in my existence, I wasn't the banker, the solver, or the child who was indebted to everyone. I was just Maya, breathing, unowned, and finally liberated. I used to believe silence signified losing, that departing was identical to surrendering. But now I understand silence can be a decision, a perimeter, a type of serenity that doesn't require anyone's approval. My family still attempts to reach out through third parties, testing if I'll shatter the calm. I never do. Some books don't need additional chapters. They just need to close. If you've ever been labeled self-centered for finally prioritizing yourself, I hope this proves to you that selecting tranquility isn't treason. It is survival. They can keep their uploads, their sympathy, their version of the facts. I'll keep my stillness, my joy, my life. If you've ever had to walk away from your own DNA to recover, tell me your experience below.